Hi everyone, it's Sarah. Welcome to a special video. This is part 2 of my flu remedies videos. I posted a hand sanitizer holder video yesterday, and today I wanted to show you how I make these little tissue holders. This is what it looks like when the tissue is in it, and then this is what it looks like when it's empty. So I wanted to show you how to make these. So let's go ahead and get started. First, what you're going to need is a piece of cardstock cut at 7.5 by 11. And I'm using the So Saffron cardstock. And we're going to be doing some scoring today. So I'm going to get my scoreboard out. Now we want to lay our cardstock first with the 7.5 side on the top. And with that on the top, we want to score at a 1/2 inch, 1.5, 6, and 7. And I will have all these dimensions on my blog like always. But it's a 1/2 inch, 1.5, 6, and 7. Now we're going to flip it around, and on our 11-inch side, we're going to score at 1, 3.5, 4.5, and 7. There we go. So now we're done with the scoreboard. So I'm going to set that aside. Now we have to do some cutting. So when you're looking at your piece of paper, you're going to have a bunch of little squares right here. You're going to have a square, a rectangle, a square, a rectangle, and then a longer rectangle. We need to get rid of these 2 longer rectangles right here at the bottom. So you can take your paper snips or your scissors, or you can use your cutting board, your paper trimmer, but I'm just going to use my scissors and cut these off. And essentially what you're going to do, whatever you do on one side, you're going to do on the other side. So get this last rectangle cut off here. There we go. So now it should look like that. Let's move the camera out a little bit. There we go. So now it should look like this. So now what we need to do is on the next score line up, we need to cut all the way up to that score line. So just like that, and we need to do it on the other side. When you're done with that, you're going to notice that you have a long rectangle right here and then a short strip right here. We're going to take it from the score line and cut on a diagonal like this. And that's what's going to make our tabs to go inside of our tissue holder. Now there's no direction on how wide to cut them or anything like that. You just want to cut them because then it helps your box to close better. So they're not going to be seen, so if they're not even or anything like that, it doesn't matter. So just give them a snip. So now it should look like that. Now we have this next box, a rectangle, and this next box. What we want to do is we want to keep this whole box right here, but we want to cut off this little tab right here. So we're going to cut our next score line up to our other score line right there. And now we're going to cut this tab off. And again, we're going to do that on the exact same side. Cut up to that score line, And now cut this tab off. Just like that. Got it a little crooked there. There we go. So now we have long rectangle, score line, and then a square. So we want to get rid of that whole triangle section, rectangle section right there. So we're going to cut up to that score line again, and then we're going to cut this section off. And there we go. And do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so now we have these two little tabs right here. We want to cut off that little 1/2 inch tab that we scored. So really the only tab for the 1/2 inch that sticks out are for these little flaps right here. Everything else, all the other little tabs should be cut off. There we go. So now it should look like this. Cute. So now we're going to reinforce all of our score lines. And when you make boxes or bags or anything like that, it's very important that you reinforce your score lines because it just helps your project to come together that much more. It's easier to put together, I should say. So reinforce all these. And so now, can you see the tissue holder? See? How cute. So now that when I know that my tissue holder is going to go together, I just take a pencil and I mark this spot, and this spot. And I do that because when I open it, this spot is on the top right here, but my other two spots are on the bottom. And I do this because I want to do some decoration on my box. So I want to make sure that they're going to go the right way. So for that, I'm going to be using the Elements of Style stamp set, and I'm going to be using that stamp right there. And I'm using Daffodil Delight ink, and really quickly, I'm just going to stamp all over the place. And it doesn't matter if it goes inside those score lines or not, because you're not going to see them. And then I'm going to flip them over and do the same thing on this side. There we go. That looks good for now. Okay, so now what we need to do is I went ahead and we need to cut out our section right there for our tissue to go through. So I pre-cut a square that's cut at 1.5 by 2 1/4. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set that in the middle where I think it's center. Take a pencil and trace the box. And it doesn't have to be perfect, you just have to have a general idea of where it's going. So now I'm going to take my paper trimmer and I'm going to cut that box out. And I do recommend using the paper trimmer for this, only because it's hard to get your scissors in there. So I'm going to line my pencil line up in the center of that opening right here in my trimmer. Take my blade, put the point at my pencil line, and then cut up to my other pencil line. And then I'm going to turn it around and I'm going to do the exact same thing on this side. I'm going to put my pencil line in the middle of that and then cut down to my pencil marks. So same thing here in the middle. And on the trimmers, I don't know if you can see it, but at the end of the little blade thing, there's a point right there. So you can see exactly where your trimmer is going to, or where your cutter is going to go in your trimmer. If you line that point up right with your pencil mark and then stop it at your other pencil mark, you'll know exactly where it's going. So get rid of that for now, and then there you go. There's our square. Now we don't want to leave it just a square, we want to cover it with something. So I went ahead and cut a piece of the wild wasabi at 1.5 by 2 1/4, and I ran this through my Big Shot using the Petals of Plenty embossing folder. And you're going to need your large oval punch. So you're going to take your punch and you're going to put this in the center as best as you can. That looks good to me. Then you're going to punch it out. Take my snail here and snail right here on the edges. And then lay this right on top there. So see, that's why it doesn't matter if your square that you cut out is completely even, because you can't even see it once you put your colored paper on there. Okay, so now let's assemble our box. What we need to do is fold it up like this. So you're going to put ink on these two tabs, or sticky, I'm sorry, on these two tabs and on this tab right here. So get my snail again and put it, and I would suggest using the red sticky for this, just so it holds together, but for the video, I'm not going to. I'm just going to use my snail, because this video takes long enough as it is. Alright, so now then we're going to put it together, push this in here, line it up, and then there we go. And then I like to take my bone folder and stick it in there and then kind of rub it around on those tabs to make sure it's good and stuck down. So now what we're going to do is we need to put sticky right here. And I probably should have put that on there before I stuck it down, but it's okay. We're just going to run some snail right here. No worries. There we go. Then we're going to line this up with that score line and then fold this up. Take my bone folder again and rub it in there, and then there's our box. So now when you put your tissues in there, get these tissues out of this one, and if your tissue's open on the end, just cut a little crisscross in the middle, and then your tissues will come up through the top. And then stick this in there like that. There we go. So now you only have to open it on one side when you have to replace your tissues. Look at that. How adorable is that? So now to decorate it real quick, I went ahead and punched out a couple of the 1 1/4 scallop circle, and I made myself a flower, put an antique brad in the middle along with some pumpkin pie that was cut out in the 7/8 inch scallop circle punch. And I'm going to take some dimensions, and then I'm going to stick those on the back of it here. And I'm going to stick that right there. Along with my saying that I pre-stamped, it says to make it better, and this is from the Petite Pears set, and I did the elegant eggplant in on a piece of Whisper White using the 4 frames, and sorry, I forgot to grab my punch, the decorative label punch. Good thing I don't have a very big crafting space, because then I could just hop right up and grab it. There we go. punch that out. A couple more dimensionals. And then there we go. There is our cute little tissue holder. Just like that. How adorable is that? Well, I hope you all enjoyed today's video. Until next time, happy inkin!